Hello, today we're going to do lesson 15, fractions and decimals. We're also going to remember how to round repeater decimals. So here in these drawings, what we're showing is how the same thing we can write both as a fraction or as a decimal. Notice how the same unit is divided in 5 pieces on the top and 4 of them are colored. On the bottom, we have the same division, but then we have a line in the middle that cuts it in 10 pieces instead of 5. But we have colored the same amount of space, which represents a 8 out of 10 or 8/10. And that's why 4/5 is the same as 8/10. Now notice that we can also write that as a fraction here. If I expand, like we learned in the previous lesson, and multiply times 2, I'm going to get 8/10, which is the same as the 8/10 we have here. Now, what this is trying to show us is that we're using 2 different ways of representing the same quantity, because what we're saying at the end is that it's a fraction or a part of a total. Now let's look at some examples here. In example 15.1, it says write each fraction as a decimal. Now remember that what we have to do is divide, because this is a division. 3 out of 8 is a division. So we have to put the 3 on the inside and the 8 on the outside. When we divide, we can't do it, so we put 0. And then the decimal point is here, so I put the decimal point there. And I bring down another 0. 30 divided by 8 is 3, which is 24. I bring down another 0 to have 2 or 3 decimals. That would be 7, because 7 times 8 is 56. And I bring it down another 0, because I know 40 divided by 8 is 5. Okay, now in this case, I did 3 decimals because I knew that this was going to finish here on 40, and then we have no remainder. But remember, it's always good to do 3 decimals so that you can round to 2. Now, since this is the exact answer, I'm just going to leave it like that. In the next exercise, we do the same. It's 1 divided by 30, which we can do. So we put the 0 and then the decimal point. We bring down another 0, and we still can't do it. So we put another 0, and we bring down another 0. Remember that the zeros here on the top are responses saying we can't divide. So it's not every time we bring down a 0. It's just saying we can't do it, so we put a 0. And then we bring down another 0. 100 divided by 30 is 3, which would be 90. And 100 minus 90 is 10. I bring down another 0, and I have another 100, so it's going to be another 3, and that's going to repeat. Remember, when that happens, I know this is going to continue. The answer is with the 3 repeating, and to say that we put a line over the number that is repeating. Notice that it's not over 0, it's just over 3, and that would be our answer. We could also round, and in this case, if we round, the approximate answer would be 3/100. In example 15.2, they asked that we write each fraction as a decimal number. But in this case, what they want us to see is that we don't always have to divide. Although 3 is divided by 10, we don't need to do the division. If we just read the fraction, if we read this fraction, the fraction is 3/10. And remember that 3/10 we've learned before, that is this. So I can write it as a decimal just by placing it with the place value. Now the next exercise has a 5, so that doesn't help us to find the place value. But if I expand using what we learned in the previous lesson, we multiply by 2 and we get 10 here, and we multiply by 2 and get 4 here. So now we can do the same. We can say 4/10, and the answer would be 4/10. Now the same is with the third case. In this case, it's not a place value, but if I multiply it by 5, then I'm going to get 100. And that will help us with the place value. So if I read that fraction, that would be 15 hundredths, and that would be the decimal. In 50.3, they're asking us to write as a decimal. Now, in this case, again, there's no way that we can change those numbers or expand those numbers into powers of 10. So we just have to divide. So we'll divide the 3 divided by the 7, which again is 0. We bring up the decimal point and we add a 0. 30 divided by 7 is 4, which is 2. We bring down another 0, which will be 2, and that's 14. That would be 6. We bring down a 0, which would be 8. And we have already 3 decimals, so I'm going to round to the second decimal. So my answer will be 43 hundredths. For the next exercise, we'll do the same. 5 divided by 6 is not possible, so I put a decimal point, bring down a 0. 50 divided by 6 is 8, because 6 times 8 is 48. I subtract this 2, bring down a 0. 20 divided by 6 is 3. 3 times 6 is 18. And I bring down a 2. Then I bring down another 0, which is 20 again. And notice how it's going to start repeating again. So the answer for this, in this case, is 0.83 repeating. Again, notice how I just put the line on the number that repeats, not in all of the decimals. In the next example, they asked that we would round to the nearest millionth. So what we have to do is rewrite this number. Notice how the line only repeats on 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to only write 3, 4, 5 several times. And repeat. Remember, that means that it keeps repeating and repeating. But we have enough to find millions. We have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and million. So that's the decimal I want to round. So I'm going to look to the next one. And I'm going to, since it's 5 or bigger than 5, we're going to add 1 to the 4. So the answer will be 15. Notice how I'm not changing the decimal. The decimal stays because rounding is just working with the number. And so that would be our answer. In this last example, we have to pass from decimal to fractions. And in this case, what we have to do is just count how many decimals there are. In this case, there are 4 decimals. So in the denominator, I'm going to put 4 zeros. We're always going to divide by power of 10. On the top, I put the number that is non-zero. So 71 10,000s. And again, notice that if we read this number, that's how we would read it. We would say 71 10,000s, which is what we're writing here as a fraction. So it's pretty easy to see how it works. Now in this case, we have 55 on the top, and then at the bottom we have 2 decimals, so we just put 100, 2 zeros. But in this case, we're not done because we always have to reduce. So I have to divide by 5, which will be 11 over 20. So that's it. I hope it's very clear. If you have any questions, let me know. Have fun doing math.